Okay, so I'm just going to put the seat back on for the time being because the electrics are now all finished and all working, thank God. And that's been a pretty long process, but I learnt a lot as I went along and now I'm pretty happy with the results. However, I still can't start the bike because, as you can see, I've not got my fuel tank back yet from the painter. But I've been promised a tank and the front mudguard next week, so fingers crossed they'll come back and I can try and start the bike. However, there are a couple of small issues that have been irritating me for a long time that I need to address before then. And the first problem is I've got a small oil leak from somewhere around here on the chain case. I've tracked it down to my homemade one-off hydraulic clutch conversion and it seems it keeps on coming undone. It's actually quite tight now, but I can probably undo it by hand. So what I need to do for that is I need a way of tightening it up nice and secure. So I'm going to take it off. I'm going to machine a couple of flats on this part here so I can get a spanner on it and make sure it's nice and tight. But on top of that, it's just screwed in now through the thread. There's no seal in it, there's no gasket. So again, that's a bit of a potential oil leak area. So I think what I'll do is I'll take it off and machine a groove on the inner face, and then I can fit an O-ring and hopefully that'll keep the oil where it belongs inside the chain case. And that's something that's been leaking a little bit, just a drop here and there for a long time now, but I wasn't quite sure where it's coming from, but I'm pretty sure I've tracked it down to this. Yeah, now if it's leaking a little bit when it's cold and sat in my workshop, it'll leak an awful lot more when the engine's hot and the oil's hot. It'll all come out, so that needs sorting out next. And secondly, we have a broken oil pressure sender here where my finger is. Now that was done, I think, when the engine was out of the frame. These things are quite delicate and obviously it got knocked. So I bought a new one, but I didn't fit it straight away because I thought, no, I'll wait until the engine's back in this frame so it's nice and safe before I change it over. And that was a big mistake because this thing does not want to come out. It's really difficult to get at and it's secure in there. God knows how long it's been in there for, probably about 40 years, and it doesn't want to come out. I have tried heat, a bit worried about damaging the powder coating, but it's really difficult, even more difficult I think than had it been in a standard frame. Here there's very little room to get a spanner in there and I just can't get the damn thing out. So that may have to go to a professional workshop to get that sorted out because I'm running out of ideas as to how to get the damn thing off. So yeah, that's a bit of a problem. Now normally you think, oh well, it'll sort itself out, I can get it done another day, but I don't want to start the bike for the very first time and find I've got no oil pressure, so I want to get that thing working before I try and start the bike for the very first time. So yeah, bit of an annoying little thing there, and I curse myself for not at least trying to loosen it off when the engine was out of the frame. Anyway, you live and learn, so that's a bit of a problem, and right now I don't really have an answer as to how to get the damn thing off, but no doubt we'll find a way. Okay, so here's that adapter I've just removed from the chain case, and obviously it's a one-off piece that we made to mount a Honda Blackbird slave cylinder to the chain case. And I've gone through my O-ring kit here and I found an O-ring that looks to be the right kind of size. And now I could just put it back on the bike now and hope for the best, and it probably would work in stopping the oil from leaking out because it's not under pressure. But instead I'm going to take this to the workshop and we're going to put it on a lathe and we're going to machine a groove in this face which abuts against the chain case itself for this O-ring to sit in, and that will stop it from moving around and hopefully give a better seal at the end of the day. And so that's what's next.
We've just been doing that bit by bit and then trying the O-ring.
Yep.
Just get it past there.
Okay, so let's try O-ring again. Hopefully it should sit in there just right. Now here we are, back on again, and hopefully you can see the groove that's been machined in this face here. So just got to pop the O-ring back in again and we'll see how it fits on the bike. And so I've just done a quick test fit and it's not quite right yet. I've got this as tight as I can get it by hand anyway, and the two jointing faces here aren't yet meeting because obviously the O-ring is in the way. It probably will seal quite well just like that, but I really want it better than that, and also because they're not meeting this is now turned a little bit further back than it was, which means that this master cylinder doesn't quite fit. It needs to be span round to meet like that. And that's no good because I want to have the bleed nipple at the top to let the air out when you bleed it. So that means that this has to come off, and that little groove needs to be made a bit deeper so that the O-ring's not stopping the two faces from meeting. And so this needs to go back on the lathe and we'll deepen that little groove a bit more, but not yet. That'll have to wait until tomorrow. Okay, I need two of these things. These are O-rings, and I think I need, let me see, they're all too thin. No, yeah, I think I need two of these. I think that'll do. And now we're back at the bike and we're looking at the lower yoke, and here we have its lock stop, and I've just added a groove to the top of that so that the O-ring that I showed you will now sit in that groove and not go anywhere on the bike, and that will act as, hopefully, a kind of bumper so that if I go to full lock, this steel lock stop won't batter the powder coat on the side of the frame here, and instead it'll just kiss this little soft rubber O-ring and hopefully protect the powder coat. Anyway, little job done, and let's see what's next. This parcel has just arrived and it's from Hell, that is H-E-L, not H-E-L-L, and in it, let's have a look, we have a new custom made line, brake line. In fact, it's not a brake line, it's a hydraulic line, and this cost me £37, and that was a waste of money because I was very stupid in needing to have this thing ordered. And now let's go in the garage to see why. And the reason is that somehow, and I don't know how, I managed to pinch this hydraulic line here when I was putting the slave cylinder back on the bike. No idea how, perhaps I was rushing too quickly, you know, too much haste, and I've damaged the union joint here, which means I've got to replace it. Yeah, a bit of a pain. That's the bad news. The good news is that having machined a deeper groove for the O-ring to sit in, now this screws in just right and it's nice and tight, and the bleed nipple is where it should be at the top. So I guess that's one step forward and one step back. But now I need to replace this broken hydraulic line with my new one. It's a big day today because I've just been to see Richie at Motorcycle Paintworks FX up in Burskow near Preston, and I've just brought back my newly repaired tank and also the front fender that's also been painted. And I am absolutely dying to see that on the bike. But I felt like that last time, which is why I scratched it. And so today it can sit here for a little while longer yet before I get some help to get it back on the bike and hopefully not damage it in any way. So come back in a little while and we'll have it on the bike. But as I say, there's no rush. And while I'm going to be very cautious mounting the tank, and so I can wait for a little while while I get some help, I can at least mount the front mudguard. And to do that, the first thing I've got to do is mount these clamps here, which go around the fork legs and will hold the mudguard in place. Not quite sure the height yet, so I'm leaving them a little loose for the time being. By the way, these polished clamps do look a little bit odd against this matte silver finish on the forks, and to be honest, I would have liked to polish these fork legs, but they've got quite a fine casting in there, quite a sort of rough finish, so trying to polish that would take hours and hours and hours. So instead, at some point in the future, I'm going to have them painted black, sort of matte black or maybe silk black, and I think then the contrast between the polished alloy and the black would look a lot better. But anyway, that's for the future. Right now, I've got to get that mudguard mounted. And to attach the mudguard to clamps, I'm using bolts that both have a spring washer and also Loctite, because I sure as hell don't want this thing coming loose. And here it is on the bike at last. As I say, I think it will look a lot better when these forks are black rather than silver, and you never know, I may even have this treated black as well. But one point I've noticed is I need a P-clip to keep this front brake line away from the paintwork there, so that's not a great problem. So anyway, with that done, now it's time to move on to the tank. Okay, well I couldn't wait to put the tank on temporarily just to see how it looks out here in the dull evening light. However, you may notice there's one thing missing, which is this monster fuel cap, which was the cause of my difficulties last time because I managed to scratch the paint and tried to place it on here. So very gently, I'll just put it on there it'll need to be epoxy down on there. It can't be screwed on because the thread's damaged. But anyway, that's kind of how the bike looks right now. The alloy on this side's pretty bad, pretty dirty. The chrome's covered in WD-40 to protect it, so it still needs a bit more work to make it look presentable. Now I'm not sure if the camera can pick it up, but there's some corrosion on this side of the bike, on the cases, because I couldn't clean it and polish it when it was in the house because I couldn't get to this side of the bike. So obviously it's not looking its best right now. But overall, I'm really happy with the change with the new paint. I know a lot of folks said I shouldn't paint it because it had a beautiful polished alloy tank, but in the real world, keeping that tank polished and clean and unscratched was just impossible. Whereas a painted tank like this is much easier to maintain and keep looking good. And even though I'm dying to see this bike fired up for the first time in years, I'm not going to do that just yet because I've still not got a working oil pressure sender on the bike. And the last thing I want to do is fire the bike up and find I've got no oil pressure for some reason and I wreck the engine. So that'll have to wait for another day. And right now I'm really busy, so I don't know when that'll happen. But when it does, I'll film it and we'll put it on YouTube for everyone to see. So let's just have a quick walk around the bike before I put it away because I'm running out of time as usual. And you've seen that side. Let's go around the other side here. Look at the top, spin it round. That's pretty cool. And back again. And there's the side you've seen before because it's got the hydraulic clutch conversion. And of course my Mark III gear change, which I still want to change again because I think it could be better. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. No doubt a lot of folks will say, oh, you shouldn't have Norton on that bike because it's got a Harley engine. But Tritons and whatever and various bikes with featherbed frames are all called Norton, so I'm pretty happy to call it that on the tank. So anyway, with that, thanks for watching and cheers.